Joy, a Christmas art journal page by Karen Birchill. But before we go to the video, I have some exciting news to share with my subscribers here. I've launched my blog. You can find me at www.creativekatie.wordpress.com. Be sure to subscribe by hitting the button on the right, because I'm going to have some exclusive goodies just for my blog subscribers. As always, I start my page by gessoing the page. I find that since sometimes I don't know where the page is going to go, it's good to have that extra layer of protection in case I get very wet. And this page does get very wet. So I'm ripping up the music sheets in random shapes and applying it with Mod Podge. You could use gel medium if that's what you have and want to use. I find at this level, at this layer, it's not necessary to use the more expensive stuff, so I go the cheaper route. I apply a layer directly to the page and a layer on top, making sure that all the pages are adhered. I don't want any buckling later on to ruin my page. Good neighbor stores, secondhand stores are good places to go to pick up old music sheets. I got this book for 50 cents and it's lovely. It's aged and it's crisp and it's yellowed. No tea staining for me. So then I played around with some blank sheets to get two Christmas tree shapes. Once I was happy with the size and shape of those trees, I decided to trace it onto some jelly prints that I had made using Christmas colors, with the idea of using them on Christmas cards and Christmas art journal pages. So there I have it. I'm not exactly sure where I'm going to put it. I need to say that I got the inspiration for this page from Pinterest, from a pin that was designed by Scrappy Girl Designs. She's an artist out of Nova Scotia, Canada. So thank you for the inspiration. So I'm trying out letters. I printed off using my laser printer several sizes of letters, and I'm just trying to decide which one I want. Now I'm really undecided what I'm going to do to the background, so I decide that I'm going to do a whitewash. I take some of the gesso, thin it down, and apply a very light layer onto the Mod Podge music sheets. Now here I'm taking this Crafter's Workshop stencil, and I can't remember the name of it, but it will be on my blog, and I'm dipping it into the gesso and then applying it kind of like a stamp onto the page. I'm hoping to get some texture on here. So right now I've pulled out 3 of my colors of my Lindy Starburst sprays. Now Starbursts have a 2-tone glimmer to them. So I actually end up using sepia, steampunk sepia, and cactus gold. And I end up applying a couple layers and then drawing in between and making the pigment flow around the page and dry. It's catching some of the texture from the ripped music pages, and it's making it look like an old antiqued page with some definite shimmer. And I wish you could see the shimmer that comes with this. So I'm getting out my distress ink and I'm going around the edges to make it just a little bit darker around the edges, just to set off the page. And I work around the coil. I decided to put some gold around the edges. I ended up removing that. It looked, for lack of better words, somewhat tacky. It didn't look good, so I just dabbed it with baby wipe and reapplied some more of the Distress ink. Then drying it. And then I decide very lightly with the blending tool to go over to try to catch those ridges and valleys that were made with the ripped sheets. I'm applying the Distress ink around the edge of my letters now. And on the edge of my cutout Christmas trees. This just finishes it. It gets rid of the white edges and it just makes everything meld together and become more cohesive. You see me working on a plastic cutting sheet. Sometimes I put that in between my pages. For the first time now, I decide to move my letters. That wasn't where the initial plan was, but I'm liking how it's set. So I'm getting this is just a brayered off sheet from when I jelly printed, and I love keeping those sheets. This is on the back of a phone book, and I'm just cutting out a stand for both Christmas trees with that. Trying to get the height. Is the little tree going to go on top of the big tree? Which way do I want it to look? So getting out my golden gel medium, I'm applying it directly to the surface of the cutout. The reason for this is if I would put the gel medium or a glue on the page, since I've used Distress ink and the Lindy Starburst, those can be lifted. They're water soluble, and I don't want to muck up the beautiful texture and colors that I have there. So that's why I'm choosing to use the gel medium, because it's thicker and not as liquidy. So there's less chance of me having a problem and removing some of my layers. So I put the letters here and I apply them, and then I'm thinking they're in the wrong place. Somehow I didn't like it at the end. I was really struggling. I could have cut this out, but I wanted everybody to see that, yeah, sometimes we all have those indecision moments, and you spend an awful lot of time deciding on something that ends up probably going back to the exact first thing that you came up with. In the end, I am happy with where the letters end up, but as I'm creating this page and doing this video, my friend Yvonne is, I'm texting her and asking, what color, what's necessary? That's something we often do when we can't get together to craft. So I decide I need a star on each of the Christmas trees. So I'm going to use snowflake stamps and using Versamark and some embossing powder that I got from Michael's. It's a Michael's brand. It's the Recollections brand. I had two perfect colors. It had purple in it and it had the blue. I'm not sure if the heat on my heat tool is going or if it's the powders that aren't as quick to melt, but I really had some trouble with this. You'll see that all the detail seems to get lost in here, and I don't know what I'm doing wrong. I have almost decided that I am not one who embosses. It just doesn't seem to ever work. The blue one worked okay, but again, I had trouble getting it to all melt, and I had to go back several times. So I decided to redo the purple one, and I use a slightly different, less detailed stamp. thinking that may alleviate some of the problem. And I did get a better design. But I found the same problem melting, heating it up to melt it. If anybody else has experience with the Recollections brand of embossing powders, leave a comment below. Got to figure out what's going on, if it's the powder or my heat tool. So I'm just going to apply these to my page with gel medium. I never did say that this is on deli paper, and my hope is that it becomes more translucent, and so you can still see the background through it, which it does. So I get out my black Stabilo all pencil, and I'm going to outline all the items on the page, and I rub with my finger a little bit to smear it before I get a paintbrush and water and just activate it. Now again, because the background papers are created with water-soluble media, I have to be careful, because too much water or too much rubbing is going to negatively impact the background colors. I'm going to get some white around each thing, which isn't the look I'm going for. So you have to know if your medium is water soluble or will be activated again. You need to make different choices with how and what you use. So I'm really liking the little extra shadow that this is giving. Just makes it pop. And then I'm going to take the Stabilo pencil and do the same thing to frame the page. And you see me, I just spray the water into the palm of my hand and use it that way instead of putting it on the craft mat or getting a dish. And in case you haven't figured it out, I am not a neat crafter. When I've done a project, a lot of stuff is out. Typically, I clean everything up before I start. Now I've got some, I'm not sure what brand this is. I got it from my friend Yvonne, and it's kind of glitter paint. And I'm just using a stylus to apply it onto the embossed snowflakes that I'm using as stars. With the gel medium, I lost a little bit of the shine from the embossing. And actually, to be honest, I think I put the blue snowflake upside down, so the embossing is glued down. So I'm getting out my black cherry craft paint, which I used in the making of the jelly print on the red tree, and I'm filling in the dots with red paint. Off camera, I go in and I paint with black paint and a liner brush to make those letters darker. I should have done that first and then put the dots. Now I get out my fine tip applicator that I got from Curry's Art Store, which is a store in Canada, and I have thinned black acrylic paint in it, and I'm just outlining it. The trees and the letters, and I find that just makes it pop. It doesn't flow out, so it's kind of a little bit like a stained glass look in there. It's a nice detail. And then I need to really let it dry because the paint is quite built up. And on the side you see me applying water, trying to get the tip, because it's so fine, I need to get the acrylic paint out. So with the thinned black paint that I had, I used a fan brush and applied black splatter. And here you see me doing the same thing with gold. Now I didn't thin down the gold as much, so I got bigger splatters. And I'm just tapping it with something else. I'm just adding the little bit more, one more layer. And giving it a good dry. Signing my name and date. And there, hopefully you can see some of the shimmer, some of the shine, some of the texture. I've got some close-up pictures coming where you can see the shine and the gold and the black splatter. So thanks so much for subscribing to my YouTube channel and giving comments. I love to hear from you and know that if what I'm doing is helping, please leave comments. I love reading them. Hit like, share, and if you want to get notified of the next video, be sure to subscribe.